Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and tonight I'm going to be talking to you about the INFP Myers-Briggs personality type, which stands for Introverted, Intuitive, Feeling, Perceiving. Of course, you know all of that if you've been a regular watcher. I've been putting this off for quite a while because I wasn't quite sure how I was going to address the type because my experiences with INFPs have been rather limited. However, I think I know them well enough, seeing as most of my ENFP friends think they're INFPs, and then I actually know an INFP, and we also share the same function stack, so it's all cool. So, I'm an ISTJ myself, and one thing that I really admire about the INFP is that because we share the same functions, there's a level of understanding that's very rare for me to have with other intuitive types. The only type that even comes close is the ENFP, because they're a total reverse of me. But an INFP is a socionics judger, so that means they're likely to enforce first, observe later. That's not to say INFPs aren't imaginative. On the contrary, because their secondary function is introverted or extroverted intuition, they tend to have this heads in the clouds, let's imagine what the world would be like if Skittles were raining from the sky type of mindsets. But whereas ENFPs love to think about ideas, INFPs are more concerned about finding out their moral identity and then using that as the basis for every single decision they make. Basically, INFPs are pretty hard to convince to go against their morals, and they make for really good Catholics too, because if they truly believe in the faith, they can be really great teachers because they don't like conflict and they don't like arguing with people, so they're going to want to present it peacefully, and they're also going to use a lot of kind of cute-ish analogies. Like my INFP friend will often say, like, I'm having coffee with Jesus, or because Jesus and I have such a cool relationship, we can talk about how I pooped in the toilet and Jesus isn't going to care. Granted, she might have a little bit more tea than most INFPs, but, you know, she's got that level of, this is what I believe, these are my personal feelings, and when they do get in a rare confrontational state, they tend to have this over-excessive forcefulness. I mean, they basically flip to an ESTJ under stress. They can sometimes get so passionate that they start getting very, like, bossy and demanding, like, hey, you, listen to me or else kind of thing. And it can be a little bit off-putting. When my friend does that, I tend to call her Miss ESTJ because she's really short, but yet she packs a lot of punch when she's telling people what to do and saying, you, why aren't you picking up the slack? And whenever I say, are you sure you're not ESTJ? Then I take a look at her Facebook pages and see all the cute little things she does with bacon, or how she'll talk about how she had pancakes and how that made her day. Random stuff like that. INFPs have tertiary introverted sensing, which is really hard for me to imagine because that's my dominant function. But if I had to guess how it comes to play in the tertiary function, it means that their memory is abysmal. They tend to not put much details in the little things. They tend to like hidden meanings a little bit more than I do. But because it's tertiary, it means that sometimes they can use what's familiar to help with their overall goals. Like they can say, okay, well, this is what I believe. I don't really want to venture outside the realm of exploration. Or into the realm of see what I mean? It's in the tertiary function, so it's like super confusing to have someone with weak introverted sensing, but not totally terrible like the ENFPs do. INFPs are also really terrible at following through with their plans. Typically, they're known for being very procrastinating, non-scheduled, late for things. Can be somewhat on the klutzy side, but not nearly as much as the ENFP. They typically have a good enough view of their surroundings, but prefer not to make it the main priority. Like a lot of times, my INFP friend won't catch on to if I get a new haircut or if I'm wearing a different shirt. She's gotten better in recent years, but before I'd say like, hey, notice anything different? She'd be like, no, and I'd be like, I clearly had a haircut. How did you not notice this? One thing I like about INFPs is that they never, at least in my experience, they never have bad intentions. Sure, they might go about expressing themselves the wrong way, and sometimes they can be a bit of an emotional hurdle around the more thinking types. Not that INFPs are the stereotypical drama queens that the internet presents them to be. They're dominant introverted feelers, so most of their emotions are going to be on the inside. However, it is a very much a driving force. And so as a result, if they feel something, they're going to do it or not do it. They're not going to be able to push aside their feelings like we ISTJs do very easily, if at all. Although, for being introverted feelers, they're also surprisingly empathetic. While they may be a bit more selfish than, say, the ENFJs, INFPs do want to help people, and they do naturally feel that the best solution is one where everyone gets along. They don't particularly do well in crowds, but when they are in a crowd, they can have this really sort of off-the-wall type of humor where they just start talking about something that they think is cute, and then it's like totally random. And they don't get onto as big of a tangent as the ENFPs, but they can have a tendency to ramble and like not know when to shut up. But overall, I think INFPs, while they are a bit stricter and less observant than, say, someone like me would prefer, they're the type of person that I would never doubt their intentions. I would never say, oh, you're trying to hurt me or you're trying to bring me down. They almost always, 99% of the time, want what's best for the other person. Just, they don't always know how to explain it because they're introverted feelers. They're not going to be absorbing all these vibes like the extroverted feelers do. They're also going to be a lot clearer when it comes to how they express themselves and how it comes to what they've observed, because they're extroverted intuitives, which may be my bottom function, but at least I can understand it to a certain degree. Like when they try to explain metaphors, they make for really good mediators. Like I know of a priest who, I'm not sure if he's INFJ or INFP. He kind of fluctuates depending on the mood, but he usually talks in like Dante-like kind of language, and when I'm like getting too much of a headache or can't understand what he's saying, my INFP friend is really good at NF translating, which I really love because goodness knows I could use some more people that tell me, Paul, you're thinking too literally again. I wish I could say more. I wish I could even list some video game types, but the ENFPs tend to just overwhelm them because they're just so much more excitable and fun-loving. INFPs are basically just ENFPs dialed down and a little bit more on the judgmental, bossy, presumptuous. But at the same time, they're also very caring individuals that can have kind of a sentimental streak. When they're in their loops, they have what's called avoidant personality disorder, where they get so frightened about something that happened in the past and dwelling on that negative emotion that they may be reluctant to go through with it again, which ISTJs have too, so that's one area where we totally share it in common, and for that, I'm really grateful. Thankfully, they usually have a bit of an easier time moving on from a relationship because they're intuitives, so of course they're going to have this forward-moving mentality, but because it's secondary intuition instead of dominant, they might take a long time to get over, like say a breakup or a tragedy. They might want to cry a lot. They might want to just withdraw from society. They won't be as mysterious about it as the INFJ. They're likely going to like fully announce, I need to be by myself, and be very clear about it, as opposed to the INFJ, like, oh my gosh, I thought you were dead. No, I was just... And then not giving a straight answer. INFPs are a lot better than that. They also, because they're extroverted thinkers, even though it's in the inferior function, they do need to talk out loud to process logical thoughts, even if they may be kind of ridiculous and far-fetched at times. Nevertheless, if an INFP does develop their extroverted thinking, they can, the key word is can, be very good at getting things done and making sure that everyone is being competent. With that, thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have any more questions. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and communicate clearly. Bye!